You mentioned how much respect you have for Giannis's game. Which other players do you see with a similar mentality that you really admire and respect?
Joker, John Morant, Steph, Clay, all the top players pretty much get my respect. They play their own style, they play their own way, but the fact when Giannis came out and said, I'm not going to big city, I'm not teaming up with people, I was like, that's how I used to think.
Shaquille O'Neal has finally said out loud what people have been quietly debating for years. And this time, LeBron James and Kevin Durant found themselves right in the middle of the storm. It all started with a single podcast clip, a subtle smirk, and one sharp comment about Michael Jordan. But within moments, everything escalated. The basketball world quickly split into two sides. Fans began arguing, analysts grew heated, and social media timelines were completely on fire. What followed wasn't just another sports debate. It turned into something much bigger, a full-blown battle over legacy.
Every time you get better as a player, I truly feel that you got to recommit and sign that contract with yourself every so often. Like, all right, yeah, I'm 10, 12 years in, I got 4 MVPs and 4 championships. Like, but do I still want to do this shit? You know what I'm saying?
You know how hard it is.
Some people say, I want to go play baseball.
Right?
Yeah. And then I want to come back. Well, some people say, I'm going to go 22 straight. And, you know what I'm saying? So it's a contract I feel like you got to have with yourself, too, in order for you to be a, great ball player, or to have a long career. That's the goal, to be in the league for 20 years. I tell you, that's the goal. However you want to get there, but you got to recommit to yourself before you commit to anything else.
Before going any deeper, one big question hangs over everything. Are LeBron James and Kevin Durant actually disrespecting Michael Jordan's legacy, or are they simply trying to reshape the narrative in a way that puts them on top? That's the real tension behind all of this. It's the kind of debate that hits deep for true basketball fans, because it's not just about stats, it's about respect. No PR filter, just a Hall of Famer speaking from experience. This is someone who played full seasons, fought through injuries, and showed up night after night for the fans. And that's when the phrase everyone thinks about but rarely says out loud entered the conversation: load management.
You said LeBron James the greatest player ever?
Ever.
What about Michael and Kobe?
Kobe Bryant couldn't fill, or Michael Jordan fill LeBron's shoes. The impact that he's had with different teammates, different organizations.
Would you be mad at me if I just walked off the show?
You can't leave.
Whoever's paying him to say all this stuff, I will pay you double. Stop it.
Hold on. Shaq.
The clean, analytics-approved label for superstar players sitting out while still collecting massive contracts is load management. But Shaquille O'Neal didn't try to soften it or dress it up with medical data and recovery charts. He went straight at it with an old-school mindset. If you can play, you play. There was no middle ground in his take, no balancing both sides, just blunt honesty from someone who genuinely can't believe this has become normal. To him, it shouldn't even be a debate. It's simple. If you're being paid to play basketball, then you should be on the court. Then he raised the stakes even higher by bringing up the legends who built the league: Jerry West, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, and Larry Bird. He reminded everyone that these were the players who turned the NBA into the global billion-dollar powerhouse it is today. Their era wasn't built on rest nights or load management. It was built on toughness, packed arenas, and showing up no matter what. They played through exhausting travel, limited medical support, and long flights in cramped conditions. And despite all that, their paychecks...
You played. You only missed 80 games. First question is how, and the second question is, does it upset you now when you see these superstars doing load management?
Load management, wow. I could play, 25, 30 years with load management. I sit home and think about that. I made a commitment to stay in shape. Season was over. I took off 2 weeks, you know, go somewhere and
2 weeks?
2 weeks.
I took off 2 months.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in today's NBA, even a bench player can earn in a single week what some of those legends made over long stretches of their careers. And yet, those icons still showed up every night. No drama, no headlines about sitting out, just consistency and work. That contrast is exactly what fuels the frustration behind Shaquille O'Neal's argument. To him, the standard hasn't just shifted, it's dropped, especially when you compare effort to reward. Then Shaq delivered another line that cut straight to the core of the issue. He pointed out that players are only on the court for about 2.5 to 3 hours a day. That's the job. That's what they're paid to do. So his question was simple but powerful. What are you doing with the other 21 hours? In his view, that time should be spent preparing for the next game, staying ready, and maintaining the discipline.
Because I can't get up for these meaningless games. I mean, Coach Courage told me one day, he said he pulled me to the side a few years back. It's when we were competing for a championship. And it was the end of the season, maybe last 7 games. We had already locked up the 1 seed or the 2 seed, whatever we were going to be. And I'm like out there just going through the motions. He pulled me to the side. He said, you have to be the worst meaningless basketball game player I've ever seen in my life. You want to just come out the game? And I'm like, well, coach, I've been playing now. Like, I can't just come out the game. He's like, all right, well, let's figure out a way to get you sitting 3 or 4 of these last 7 games and still.
Shaquille O'Neal's comments weren't just criticism. They felt like a direct challenge to today's NBA culture. His message was simple. The grind doesn't stop when practice ends. Once you strip away all the modern terminology, recovery science, performance data, and analytics, it comes down to one basic idea. Players are paid to perform, and fans pay to watch them compete. So where is the disconnect? That's why his words hit so hard. They forced everyone to pick a side in a debate that has been building for years. At its core, it's about highly paid athletes earning tens of millions to play a sport, one supported by elite doctors, advanced recovery systems, and world-class facilities, yet still debating whether an 82-game season is too demanding. The pushback came quickly. Draymond Green defended the modern approach, while Austin Rivers brushed it off by pointing to long-term injuries suffered by older players. But to Shaq, those arguments didn't hold up. He dismissed the idea that rest should be normalized in a sport like basketball, contrasting it with physically extreme jobs. His stance was blunt. If you're healthy, you should be playing. Even Nikola Jokic, known for his consistency, gave a more passive response when asked about mandatory games, suggesting that the culture of sitting out has quietly become accepted. Meanwhile, salaries continue to rise, with average earnings surpassing $10 million and max contracts nearing $60 million. For fans spending their hard-earned money to attend games, seeing stars sit out for rest only adds to the frustration. But this conversation didn't stay limited to load management. It quickly evolved into something bigger. While Shaq was voicing his concerns, LeBron James and Kevin Durant appeared together on a podcast with Steve Nash, where a comment about Michael Jordan shifted the tone entirely. Durant made a remark about players leaving basketball and returning, clearly referencing Jordan's baseball break, with a smirk, while LeBron laughed along. On the surface, it seemed harmless, but for those who understand the context behind Jordan's 1993 retirement, it felt different. After the tragic death of his father, James Jordan, Jordan stepped away from the game while grieving. His decision to pursue baseball was deeply personal, tied to his father's dream, not a strategic career move or escape from pressure. That context is what made the moment resonate so strongly. For many fans, comparing that chapter of Jordan's life to modern career decisions felt unfair. Durant's own legacy, especially his move to join the Golden State Warriors after losing to them in 2016, has long been debated. While he won championships there, questions about how those titles were earned have never fully gone away. Similarly, LeBron's career path, from Cleveland to Miami, back to Cleveland, and then to Los Angeles, has often been viewed through the lens of strategic team building and legacy management. Each move made sense from a business and competitive standpoint, but critics argue it contrasts sharply with Jordan's path of staying, adopting, and overcoming obstacles without joining forces with rivals. Jordan's journey tells a different story. He faced repeated losses to the Detroit Pistons before finally breaking through. Instead of seeking an easier route, he improved, adapted, and ultimately conquered the teams that once stopped him. That persistence became a defining part of his legacy. Players like Charles Barkley have pointed out that today's era often leans on analytics and long-term planning, where longevity can lead to greater earnings and extended careers. There's nothing wrong with that approach, but it shifts the conversation about greatness. Statistically, the comparison only fuels the debate. Jordan's peak with the Chicago Bulls, 6 championships, 6 finals MVPs, 5 league MVPs, and multiple scoring titles, came in a relatively short span. Meanwhile, LeBron and Durant have combined for decades of elite play, yet their total achievements still spark arguments when measured against Jordan's dominance. Even durability plays a role. Jordan frequently played full seasons, including multiple 82-game campaigns, while modern stars manage workloads more carefully. Moments like the famous 1997 Finals flu game, where Jordan played through illness and delivered a legendary performance, continue to symbolize that older mindset. At some point, the NBA itself stepped in, introducing rules like the 65-game minimum for major awards, essentially ensuring that stars show up consistently. For past generations, that idea would have seemed unnecessary. To Shaq, who witnessed Jordan's approach firsthand, this isn't just about criticism, it's about protecting a standard. He sees the current shift as a redefinition of what greatness means, and that's where the debate truly lives. Is greatness about longevity, smart decisions, and maximizing a career over 20 years? Or is it about peak dominance, sacrifice, and winning at all costs in the moment?